Thank you, Aurelie, and many thanks to the participants in the first session, Professor Sevin and Isa. Now we proceed with the second panel on the portrayal of women in the audiovisual media and the message transmitted to society at large from a professional and personal perspective. I remind you to use UfM and Konrad Adenauer Stiftung social networks to send us your questions, reactions, and comments, and to use hashtag #WomenForMediterranean. Once again, I wish to remind you to keep to the time limit that each speaker has, and I would like to welcome two highly renowned journalists from both shores of the Mediterranean, Mrs. Julia Han, journalist correspondent of the Chivila in Turkey, and Mrs. Rania Hashim, Egyptian journalist, TV presenter, and member of the Supreme Council for Media Regulation from Egypt. I kindly also remind you to use the technical option to choose in the Zoom.
المجلس الأعلى لتنظيم الإعلام. لا المجلس الأعلى لتنظيم الإعلام.
Us in Arabic, English, French, and Universal Science. My first question will be addressed to Mrs. Julia Han. First of all, welcome, Julia, and it's a pleasure to have you with us today. In your opinion, what are the typical examples of gender stereotypes and role plays that our cultures portray on the screen? In less than 5 minutes, please.
Okay, now it works, I hope. Thanks for bringing us together. I think it is so important that we understand what gender stereotypes are, that we detect and actively challenge them to make sure that they are not holding us and others back. And I do think journalists and media professionals have a huge responsibility here because of the way how the media still influence our perception of the roles of girls and women in society. Now, I don't want to generalize too much because I do think there are differences between cultures and societies and how media work in those societies when it comes to, let's say, the prevalence of specific gender stereotypes, when it comes to how socially accepted sexism still is, or how widespread violence, discrimination against women are. So I do think that the experiences and struggles of women in Germany, let's say, are different from those of women in Turkey and different from those of women in Egypt. But there are similarities, and I do think that in part explains why, for example, the Me Too hashtag had such a powerful global impact, and we all know where it started, the hashtag on Twitter, on social media, and then it was basically the traditional media following suit, reporting about that social media outcry that started and spread around the world. Now, about 3.8 billion people on this planet are women. That's half of the world's population. But women are still dramatically underrepresented in the media or insufficiently represented in the media. I think that has to do on the one side with gender stereotypes. Let me get to this, but I also think it is due to the fact that women are not visible enough still in the media, on TV screens, on radio shows, in the newspapers. If you follow research, and I think somebody already mentioned that, women are much less often the focus or protagonists of news stories. Women are being much less often than men interviewed as experts, analysts, or spokespeople, and that really has to change. And then there are also not enough women yet in leadership positions in media companies. We have a lot of female reporters, journalists, editors, but it's another thing for them to make the step into a decision-making position. And then, of course, so this is something structural, something about visibility. But then when we look at the content, we still have a lot of news stories that are reinforcing rather than actively challenging existing gender stereotypes. And that is often because it's easier to use existing categories or characterizations in a world that gets more global and more complex by the day, where journalists are trying to somehow reduce that complexity. And that is what stereotypes do, right? They simplify. They are simplifiers, but they often have harmful consequences. And what we do see is that women are being somehow portrayed in contrast to men. And then we have stereotypes like women are emotional, while men are rational. Women have to be beautiful and young, especially when they want to work on television, while what matters for a man in the first place is that he's knowledgeable. Women are nurturing, so they care for the children. Women are not good at math or sciences, while men have a natural talent for that. So the list of these stereotypes and dichotomies go on. What all of them do to us, and I think that's what matters, is they have an impact on how we see ourselves, consciously or subconsciously, on our self-esteem and on our willingness as women to compete with men. And that needs to stop. This is something that I have seen in my own career. That is something that I see with other fellow female journalists, that they're constantly questioning their own capacities and abilities. And I think that's wrong. That's something that needs to change, and we all need to work on that.
Thank you so much, Julia. I fully agree with you. And now, مرحبا أستاذة رانيا هاشم الصحفية وعضو المجلس الأعلى لتنظيم الأعلام.
Mrs. Rania Al-Hashim, same question to you. What are those examples that you can provide us
القائمة على النوع أو ما يسمى بالجندر
to address the gender stereotypes, you being an Arab journalist? And what are the impacts, the cultural impacts on women in this regard? Thank you. Thank you very much for allowing the opportunity to participate in this event. I believe that everyone has their ideas, and by sharing those ideas, we build a better and more integrated landscape to change a pattern that we all refuse. I share Julia's opinion. In the Arab world, women do not have leading positions in the major media corporations. We need to focus on this. We need to have women leading large media corporations so that they can build the media policies. And this is how women can incorporate their thoughts and ideas in those in the policies embodied by these corporations. And this is how women can reflect the realities of women. In Egypt, this year, it was the year of women. Women had occupied a number of ministerial and high-level political positions, like women became governors in Egypt. So if women were able to handle those leadership positions, why is it that we represent women in those soft roles, like in the drama and the movies? Why women only embodies and plays those soft roles where they are child bearers or they care for the family? We always focus on women in the Arab world as being extremely emotional and emotionally vulnerable. Women were so much wronged in the global media with the 9/11 events. The whole world started to think of women differently. In New York Times, in a number of UK newspapers, things have started to change. The pattern started to change. They started to portray women as the courageous human being who is an actor, a driver of change. Yes, we need to bolster this image. And this can only happen through exchange of visits and sharing of experiences, like convening youth and women conferences. When we receive international experts in similar events, those experts will convey the true image we represent. So exchanging visits, exchanging experiences through events and conferences, that will help in conveying a better and more accurate reality of the Arab women. We also need to rely on the Arab diaspora across the world, because they should portray a proper image of women around the world. Also, soap operas, movies, Western soap operas and movies, the Western media. We know that nowadays the soaps and the series impact on the public opinion a great deal. So we need to try and infiltrate that arena so that we can change the stereotypes and the image of the Arab women. So then again, I focus on exchanging and sharing experiences, exchanging visits, speaking to public opinion influencers. This is how we change our the image that the people and the world has of us. So we need to step up this game. We need we need as women to help one another. Julia is echoing my opinion. It shows us that women are always keen on helping other women, even if they were not in the same country. So, because Julia now spoke on my behalf. So we need to focus on this solidarity between women and push together towards changing those misconceptions of women and those wrong stereotypes. We had this experience of the World Youth Conference, where we convened, where we met with other women and we were able to talk to them. And now with COVID, we need to find new arenas and platforms to convene similar events. Thank you. Thank you, Rania. My second...
This issue in your TV productions to ensure that gender stereotypes are not disseminated.
As Rania just pointed out, some serious work still has to be done here. First of all, I think it's important that TV channels and media companies stand up for gender equality, that they have anti-discrimination policies in place, and that they give women access to decision-making processes. But of course, as individual journalists, as female journalists, we're not powerless. We can influence the way we do our stories. And when I, for example, do a story, I try to make women more visible. When I do a story where it doesn't matter if the main character is a woman or a man, because they're equally qualified, they're equally relevant for the story, I would go for the female character to just make women more visible. And then sometimes you have stories, of course. Violence against women is an important topic, where the woman is the victim in the story because of what was done to her. But then I think the story shouldn't stop there. It shouldn't stop with her being the victim. And then I try to show what she and others do to get her out of this situation, to positively inspire other people and inspire change. So the narrative is not the narrative of victimhood, but it changes into a more positive narrative where the woman turns into a hero figure. So I think that is something we can do when it comes to the content we produce. We can, of course, invite more female experts, analysts, wherever we find them, to make also those people much more visible on TV screens. Then I think we need more positive role model stories. I want to live in a world where I say physicist, neuroscientist, politician, judge, soldier, heart surgeon, and we don't automatically think about men here. We have women in front of our eyes. When we hear about these stereotypical male jobs. So this is a world that we can actively help to create. And then I think Rania made a really, really important point, and this is exchange and networks. I think female journalists need to stand together. I see that I'm working with a lot of other colleagues here who are female. I get in touch with younger journalists who ask me, how did you get to the point where you're right now? How did you become a foreign correspondent? And I like to share my experiences because I think we need to support each other and have each other's backs if we want to really change something. So that is a really, really important part here, the solidarity among female journalists.
Thank you so much, Julia. This is very interesting, and I think that Rania will agree with you. And I have the same question for Rania. أستاذة رانيا، كيف تعالجين كمذيعة تلفزيونية هذه التصورات؟ يعني أنت كصحفية.
How do you address these stereotypes and misconceptions that discriminate negatively? And how do you combat them on a larger scale through your work and through your TV programs? I believe as a TV anchor, you have a great role to play at this stage. We try to shed light on great women in Egypt. The president, Sisi, Sisi always focuses on the great role of women, and that behind every man there is a woman. Now, we are creating new images of women. We've always had young girls saying, I want to grow up to become a doctor. Now we have girls saying, I want to become a pilot. And we have pilot women, and this is something we had never imagined before. Egyptian women are now occupying and assuming all those professions that were denied to them before. And women are not only TV anchors. On TV, they are always permanent hosts, experts, consultants, advisors, and we're making sure to do so because we want to influence the new generation, tell them and instill their belief that women are assuming their role and are realizing their full potentials. And by doing so, we would be creating new role models to the younger generation, because by seeing a woman role model, they would be more encouraged and inspired. Also, when we talk about the traditional media, we should not neglect the alternative media, the social media. And we need to use the social media in promoting the right image of women. We know that our young people love to listen songs. When you have a famous singer mounting a video clip with a belly dancer, female belly dancer, and the belly dancer would be playing some dirty dance, that would portray women in a very bad way. So we try to rectify that course of action. We try to rectify that pattern because we try we try to make sure that women are not portrayed in that category all the time. Women are not only instincts. Women are not only about being beautiful. Women have reason, and they can reason. And we're launching, we're fostering this approach now in the media. Now we know that we can't travel because of the COVID outbreak, but we can use the social media to exchange this experience with the other countries, other experts around the world to address these women issues. And I really hope that you help us as a platform. Let's try to come out from this event with a kind of a story or a platform that enable us to achieve those objectives, a platform to exchange experiences and thoughts, to push women's
is on the relevance of media and film in building gender roles. And what do you think? Do you think that's by just having women in the media and women filmmakers, the stereotypes will revert? The question is to Julia.
I'm not sure I completely understood the question. How?
The question is coming from the audience. Do you think that by just having women in the media and women filmmakers, the stereotypes will revert? Do you think that? Do you agree?
Good and bad? Sorry, I acoustically don't understand the last part of the question.
Do you think that by just having women in the media and women filmmakers, the stereotypes will revert? I think that our followers mean that just the participation of women in the media, is it enough to revert this issue? Well,
it's a beginning, right? If women are made more visible on television, for example, and can share their views and how they see the world, it kind of creates a certain balance versus a very male-dominated narrative. But of course, it's also not only about the quantity of women that we see on the media, it's also about, the quality of the debate. And I think it's also always up to the individual women in their daily lives, in their professional lives, to deal with discrimination, to challenge sexism when we come across it. And that is oftentimes not easy, believe me. It's about a certain change in the mentality, in the male mentality as well. You would often still come across men who would say, well, she achieved this and that, despite the fact that she's a woman. Wow, we applaud her. But that is absolutely the wrong approach, right? Of course, women can achieve everything they want as long as no one puts obstacles into their ways. And I see these gender stereotypes that we have as obstacles that are being put into our way. So it's also up to us to help and remove these obstacles. I hope that somehow answers the question.
This is very clear, and the same question is addressed to Rania. Briefly, we don't have enough time. If you can just comment this question. هل تعتقدين أن فقط
women in drama and the cinema always represent the soft roles. They do not represent, for example, they don't play roles of ministers or scientists. They often portray the role of wives and mothers. This is very good because it's a key mission for women to become mothers and to bring up good generations. So, but the drama, the Arab drama, focuses on the emotional part of women. And, you know, with all the difficulties we live nowadays, women, the community, the people would turn to the drama to release some stress and to have some emotions. And there is no shame in that when women succeed in being spouses and mothers. This is achieving a great role of and a great mission. But we should also be portraying women who are successful in their careers. If we marry those two aspects, we will be able to succeed. We will be able to tell people that we can convince the new generation that we can succeed in all walks of life. And this will encourage the new generation to take up to those, to follow in the footsteps of those women. A few recommendations or suggestions, please.
Let's post the story on Facebook or the social media to rectify the representation of women. We need to engage people, and that is something that must be sustained all the time throughout the social media, even if it's a 5 minutes post on the representation of women per countries. And we're looking forward to physical meetings as soon as possible after the end of the COVID-19.
Well, I think we need to be aware of what's holding us back, and negative gender stereotypes are holding us women back. So it's important to detect them, to expose them, and actively break them so that both women and men can live up to their full potential. And I think that journalism and media professionals can drive that process, that they should drive it, that they can be positive change makers. And that is something that needs to happen both on a content level, when it comes to the output that is being published in both traditional media and on social media, but it also needs to happen within the power structures that govern media companies and media systems.
Thank you so much, Julia. Thank you so much, Rania. Thanks to the followers for our online events. And we continue now with the session 3 on the need to enhance the media's potential for women's empowerment in the audiovisual sector, to be moderated by Mrs. Amel Saidan from Tunisia. We will have about 2 minutes before going to the third and last session. And many thanks to you all. Welcome, Amel, and the floor is yours.
Thank you very much, Abdelkader. We'll revert back in 2 minutes.